Something strange happens to many women after they cross 40. A quiet shift that almost nobody warns men about. One day she's laughing with the kids over breakfast, planning the week, moving through life like everything is normal. And then, almost overnight, something changes. Her phone becomes a little too private. Her workouts suddenly turn intense. Her evenings feel distant. And you're left standing there, wondering when the woman you knew slipped into someone you barely recognize. If you felt this shift, that strange emotional drift you can't quite describe, you're not imagining it. Thousands of men notice the same pattern but stay silent because they don't know what it means, or whether they're even allowed to talk about it. This isn't about blame. This isn't about who's right or wrong. This is about understanding a psychological transformation that modern society pretends doesn't exist. And today, I'm going to break it down piece by piece. Why this sudden change hits so hard after 40, what's happening beneath the surface, and what every man needs to understand before the cracks become impossible to repair. If you're a man who has felt your partner slowly shift away from you, even when you've done nothing wrong, then hear this carefully. What you're feeling isn't weakness, and it isn't overreaction. It's real. And it hurts because it hits in the quiet, ordinary moments of life. The moments where you expect closeness, but get distance instead. Maybe it starts small. You send a simple text, something thoughtful, and she takes hours to reply with just one cold sentence. You plan a weekend, but she suddenly doesn't feel like going anymore. You reach out to hug her at night, and she subtly turns her body away, as if connection now takes effort. These moments pile up, not loudly, not dramatically, but silently, like sand slipping through your fingers. And somewhere inside, you start asking yourself questions you never imagined you'd ask. Did I do something wrong? Is she losing interest? Why does it feel like she's here, but not really here? This confusion can feel like emotional whiplash. One week she's warm and engaging, and the next she feels distant, irritated, or strangely detached. And you're left trying to guess what changed, replaying conversations in your head, analysing her tone, searching for signs. Let me tell you something no one tells men. You're not crazy. You're not imagining it. And you're definitely not the only man going through this. There are patterns behind this shift, patterns almost no man is ever taught to see. And once you understand them, everything begins to make sense. Before men ever understand why things change, they notice how things change. And it almost always begins in small, subtle ways that are easy to dismiss at first, until they stack together and form a pattern you can't ignore anymore. It often starts with her routines. Maybe she used to share everything with you, her day, her thoughts, her frustrations. But now she's spending more time on her phone, not necessarily doing anything suspicious, just somewhere else, scrolling, texting, absorbed in a world you're no longer invited into. She starts needing more space, not dramatically, just tiny withdrawals. She prefers going to bed early. She chooses to sit on the opposite side of the couch. She wants quiet instead of conversation. It feels like an emotional shutdown, but she doesn't call it that. She calls it being tired, busy, or overwhelmed. Then come the lifestyle changes. You notice new clothes appearing, styles she didn't care about before. A sudden interest in fitness, skincare, or activities she never talked about in the past. She reconnects with old friends, joins a new class, or spends more time outside the house. And while none of this is wrong, it still feels like she's building a version of her life that doesn't include you in the same way. And socially, the distance shows even more. Conversations become shorter, smiles fade faster, affection feels rationed. Where she once leaned toward you during discussions, now she leans back, arms crossed, eyes drifting, answering with half-hearted responses. Moments that used to feel warm now feel like you're talking through a thin layer of ice. You start sensing it everywhere, in how she hugs you, how she walks ahead of you, how she avoids eye contact when something emotional is mentioned. It's as if her attention is slowly slipping away piece by piece. But here's the truth most men never hear. These behaviours are symptoms, not the root cause. What you're seeing on the surface is only the outward expression of a deeper shift happening quietly inside her. And once you understand that deeper shift, everything else finally makes sense. What most men don't realize is that the sudden change they see on the surface usually comes from a quiet storm happening inside her. And that storm begins with a single realization: I'm not the same woman I used to be. For many women, hitting 40 isn't just a birthday. It's a mirror being held up to their life, a mirror they can't ignore anymore. She starts noticing signs of aging, not just physically, but emotionally. Time feels faster, priorities feel different, and the identity she built in her 20s and 30s begins to feel outdated, almost like she's wearing clothes that no longer fit her soul. For years, she may have played roles she never had time to question: the caregiver, the partner, the organizer, the emotional anchor for everyone around her. But when 40 arrives, something inside her asks, who am I outside these responsibilities? And that question shakes everything. You'll see it in small moments. She looks at an old photo of herself, maybe from her 20s, and doesn't just see a younger face. She sees a woman who had dreams, spontaneity, energy, freedom, and she wonders where that version of herself went. She signs up for a class she used to love: dance, pottery, yoga. Not because she's bored, but because she's trying to reconnect with a part of her identity she put on pause for years. She suddenly craves independence. Not rebellion, independence. A feeling of reclaiming herself after decades of serving everyone else. And this internal shift affects the relationship in ways men can feel, but rarely understand. She becomes emotionally distant, not because she stopped caring, but because she's sorting through an overwhelming mix of nostalgia, pressure, regret, and desire for renewal. Her attention turns inward, towards rebuilding her identity, instead of outward toward the relationship. She starts seeking meaning, something new, something stimulating, something that makes her feel alive again. This isn't always a person. Sometimes it's a project, a routine, a community, or a version of herself she's trying to revive. And here's the part men misinterpret the most. She's not pulling away from you. She's pulling away toward herself, trying to figure out who she is for the next chapter of her life. This identity crisis after 40 is powerful. And if men don't understand it, the emotional gap in the relationship can grow in silence. Before any sudden shift ever happens, something else has usually been building quietly for years. Not loudly, not dramatically, but silently in the background of everyday life. It's the emotional labor she carries that most men never see clearly. The small, constant responsibilities that don't make noise, but drain energy drop by drop. She's the one keeping track of everyone's schedules, dentist appointments, school events, family commitments. She remembers what the kids need, what bills are due, which relative is upset, what groceries are running out. She carries the mental checklist that never turns off, even when she's exhausted. She's the one who plans birthdays, buys gifts, organizes dinners, and makes sure every holiday feels right. She puts emotional effort into moments that often go unnoticed because they seem routine, but routine only exists because she keeps creating it. She manages the meals, the small crises, the moods in the house. She's the emotional support system for everyone, including you, and even though she doesn't complain, the weight adds up. And here's the part many men don't realize. When these contributions go unacknowledged, not intentionally, but simply because they blend into daily life, it can create a long, slow burn of resentment. Not anger, not rage, just fatigue. A kind of emotional tiredness that grows from being needed constantly but appreciated rarely. You see it in small reactions. She sighs more. She's easily irritated. She feels unheard even when you think you're listening. She stops asking for help because she assumes you won't notice what needs to be done, unless she explains it step by step. Over time, this emotional labor becomes invisible not because it's small, but because she becomes too good at carrying it. So when you finally notice a switch in her, more distance, less warmth, less engagement, it's not because she changed overnight. Her switch was slow burning. Build-up of years feeling like her efforts blended into the background instead of being valued. This simmering fatigue becomes one of the hidden foundations behind the sudden shifts men see later. the ones that feel abrupt, but were actually forming quietly all along. There's another layer that men rarely hear about. Not psychological, not emotional, but biological. Because once a woman crosses 40, her body begins a transition she didn't choose, but has to navigate every single day. Her hormones start shifting in unpredictable waves, not enough to shut her down, but enough to make her feel like she's losing control of her moods, her energy, and sometimes even her own reactions. One week she feels normal. The next week she feels overwhelmed by things that never bothered her before. These fluctuations can trigger mood swings, moments where she snaps quickly, withdraws suddenly, or feels unusually sensitive. Not because she's angry at you, but because her internal balance is changing in ways she can't always explain. Sleep becomes harder, nights feel longer, she wakes up tired even when she sleeps enough, and when sleep goes, patience goes with it. Her libido can shift too, sometimes dropping sharply, sometimes becoming inconsistent. This creates confusion for both of you. She avoids intimacy, not because she's rejecting you, but because her body isn't responding the way it used to. She may feel guilt, frustration, or embarrassment, even though she might never say it out loud. Stress sensitivity increases. Small tasks feel heavier. Simple arguments feel sharper. A normal conversation at night can turn into silence because she's emotionally drained. Imagine this scene. You reach out to hold her, but she gently moves away, saying she's tired. Or you try to talk about something important, and she becomes irritable without knowing why. Or she lies awake staring at the ceiling, her mind racing while her body refuses to rest. This physical turbulence becomes emotional distance, not intentionally, but naturally. When her body is in survival mode, everything else, communication, affection, patience, takes the back seat. And men misinterpret these changes as loss of love, when in reality, she's trying to adjust to a new version of her body that doesn't feel familiar to her anymore. These biological shifts don't excuse every behavior, but they explain why she feels overwhelmed, distant, or inconsistent. It's not just emotions changing, it's chemistry, energy, and stability shifting all at once. There's another force quietly shaping her behavior, not internal, not hormonal, but external. The world around her is constantly feeding her signals, reminders, and attention she never expected to receive at this stage of life. Social media is one of the biggest triggers. With a single swipe, she sees women her age reinventing themselves. New careers, new bodies, new lifestyles, new beginnings. And even if she doesn't say it, part of her starts wondering, why am I not doing more for myself? Likes, comments, little compliments. They create a validation loop that makes her feel noticed again in a way everyday family life rarely does. Then come the old friends who suddenly reappear. A message from a college friend, a comment from someone she hasn't spoken to in years, a harmless, "Hey, long time," that hits her heart differently because it reminds her of a version of herself she buried under responsibilities. A single message from someone from her past can shift her emotional direction more than she admits. Not because she wants a new relationship, but because she feels seen again. Online communities play a role too. Groups that promote independence, self-focus, and emotional autonomy can subtly influence her thinking. She hears constant messages like, "Put yourself first," "You've given enough," "Stop sacrificing your happiness." These ideas aren't wrong, but repeated enough they create restlessness inside her. And in the real world, validation appears where she least expects it. A colleague compliments her new haircut. A trainer at the gym encourages her progress. A stranger smiles at her during a morning walk. Small gestures, but they hit differently when she's already questioning herself, her identity, and her place in the relationship. None of this means she's seeking attention, but when she feels drained at home and energized outside, her emotional compass slowly begins turning outward. She starts associating the outside world with confidence, freshness, and possibility, while home feels routine, predictable, sometimes heavy. This contrast alone can create distance, not because she stopped loving you, but because she feels revalidated somewhere else, and that feeling becomes addictive. And when modern attention, old connections, and emotional fatigue collide, it can quietly reshape her priorities without her even realizing it. At some point in this journey, many women reach a mental stage that feels sudden to men, but has been developing quietly inside her. It's something psychologists sometimes refer to as an escape window, a period where she reassesses everything in her life with sharper clarity. During this phase, she steps back emotionally and looks at the relationship as if she's evaluating it from the outside. She questions the past, the present, and the future all at once. She asks herself whether she's fulfilled, whether she feels understood, and whether she can continue living the same way for the next decade. It's not impulsive, it's not dramatic, it's reflective, and it's powerful. This is when a belief starts forming inside her. If something is going to change, it has to be now, not later. For her, 40 doesn't feel like the middle of life, it feels like a turning point. She starts thinking in terms of opportunity and time running out. This now or never mindset pushes her toward decisions she avoided for years. During this escape window, her behaviour can look cold or detached. She communicates less. She becomes protective of her personal space. She makes future plans without including you. She seems emotionally unavailable even when she's physically present. These behaviours aren't cruelty. They are signs she is mentally exploring a life where she prioritises her independence, her dreams, or her emotional peace. And there are clear indicators a relationship has entered this window. She stops initiating affection. She avoids deeper conversations. She becomes overly focused on personal goals or routines. She reacts strongly to small conflicts because her emotional tolerance has dropped. This is the period where change escalates. Men often feel blindsided, but she has been preparing emotionally long before anything visible happened. Understanding this window is crucial, because what happens next depends on how the connection is rebuilt or allowed to drift apart. When men start noticing the shift, the distance, the mood changes, the withdrawal, their reactions are almost always driven by fear, not intention. And without realizing it, those reactions often make everything worse. The most common response is confrontation, not because he wants to fight, but because he wants clarity. He asks direct questions, tries to fix the problem, pushes for answers she isn't ready to give. What he sees as trying to reconnect, she experiences as pressure, and pressure only pushes her further inward. Then there's the opposite reaction, pulling away. Men do this to protect themselves. They go quiet, create emotional distance, stop initiating affection, thinking, if she doesn't care, why should I? But she reads this withdrawal as confirmation that the relationship is fading, strengthening her resolve to detach even more. Another unintentional mistake is emotional shutdown. Men often struggle to express fear, hurt, or insecurity, so they mask it with silence, irritability, or defensiveness. She interprets it as coldness, not realizing it's actually pain. And of course, there's jealous or suspicious behavior, checking her phone, questioning her routine, interrogating every small change. He acts out of anxiety, but she feels mistrusted, and mistrust kills emotional safety. You see these patterns in everyday moments. A simple conversation turns into a heated argument because both feel misunderstood. A quiet dinner turns into another night of silent treatment. He tries to talk at the wrong time. She tries to avoid the conflict altogether. Both feel alone, even while sitting right next to each other. These reactions don't come from a bad place. They come from fear. Fear of losing her, fear of losing the relationship, fear of not being enough. But here's the truth most men never hear. Reacting makes her retreat. Understanding brings her closer. The turning point isn't when you push harder. It's when you learn to read her emotions instead of reacting to them. Behind all the changes, behind the distance and the silence, there's a world inside her that she struggles to put into words. Not because she doesn't want to, but because she herself doesn't fully understand it. One of her biggest fears is regret. She worries that if she keeps living the same way, same routines, same emotional patterns, same unspoken frustrations, she'll wake up one day and realize she missed her chance to feel alive again. This fear sits quietly in the back of her mind, influencing choices she doesn't openly talk about. She also feels invisible, even if you never meant to make her feel that way. Years of multitasking, caregiving, and holding everything together can make her feel like she's fading into the background. When she talks and you're distracted, when she hints at needing help and you don't catch it. The small misses add up in her heart. More than anything, she desires emotional renewal. She doesn't necessarily want a new relationship. She wants a new version of herself, a spark, a sense of aliveness she hasn't felt in years. She wants to feel appreciated, noticed, understood, not just needed. At the same time, she feels confused about her own identity. She's torn between who she used to be, who she became for the family, and who she wants to become now. Those three versions don't always match, and the gap between them creates emotional chaos she rarely admits. And yes, she often feels trapped between loyalty and self-discovery. She loves her family. She values her relationship. But she also feels the pull of a life she hasn't explored yet. This tug of war makes her distant, inconsistent, and emotionally unpredictable. You can see these battles in the smallest moments. She zones out while you're talking. She stares blankly at the TV, not really watching. She sighs without knowing why. She hesitates before answering simple questions. These aren't signs of coldness. They're signs of emotional overload. Understanding what she won't say is the key to reconnecting with the part of her that feels lost. There comes a moment when the subtle shifts turn into clear warnings, signs that the relationship is reaching a fragile, dangerous edge. These signs don't appear all at once. They unfold slowly, but when they do, they carry a very real message. Something is slipping beyond the point of silence. The first sign is disinterest in the future. She stops making long-term plans with you. Vacations, projects, even simple weekend ideas. She avoids them or gives vague answers. It's not that she doesn't care. It's that she no longer sees the future clearly with you in it. Then comes reduced communication. Conversations become transactional. She responds, but without warmth. She talks, but without depth. It feels like she's present in body, but gone in spirit. Another major red flag is emotional numbness. Arguments that used to matter now get a shrug. Moments that once created excitement now feel flat. She stops reacting because she's emotionally drained. Not indifferent, just exhausted. You'll also notice she seeks validation outside the relationship. Compliments from others lift her more than your words do. Interactions at work, the gym, or online seem to energize her in ways your presence no longer does. Physical closeness fades too. Hugs become brief. Kisses feel routine. Touch becomes rare or avoided altogether. And finally, she spends more time away from home, emotionally or physically. Extra errands, long gym sessions, more time with friends, more solitude. These behaviors don't mean she's made a final decision, but they do mean the relationship has entered a critical zone. This is the moment where panic will push her further, but clarity, calmness, and understanding can still pull her back. These signs aren't the end. They're the warning that you must shift from reacting to truly reconnecting. When a woman begins drifting emotionally, most men react with fear. They argue, over-explain, or withdraw completely. But the truth is, the way you respond in this phase can either accelerate the distance or slowly bring her back towards stability. The first step is genuine listening. Not listening to defend, not waiting for your turn to speak, but listening to understand. When she talks, give her space to finish. Let her emotions land without correcting them. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is simply, "I hear you." Next, focus on rebuilding emotional connection, not romance. Connection starts small, asking how her day really was, showing interest in what she's learning or struggling with, sitting beside her without distractions. These micro moments create softness where tension used to live. Another crucial piece is reducing the household imbalance. If she's carried emotional and logistical weight for years, lighten her load. Take initiative. Handle school schedules, errands, dinner planning, not as a favour, but as partnership. When she sees you stepping into responsibilities she long shouldered alone, her guard lowers. At the same time, you must set calm boundaries. Not ultimatums, not threats. Boundaries. A simple, steady line like, "I want us to reconnect, but I can't do it alone. I need honesty and effort from both of us." Boundaries create safety because they show stability, not desperation. Then, reintroduce novelty into the relationship. Not grand gestures, small surprises, a spontaneous drive at sunset, a coffee date at a place you once loved, a new activity you both try together. Novelty reminds the brain that the relationship is still alive, and never underestimate the power of genuine appreciation, not cliches, real specific words. Thank you for how much you've carried. I see it now, and I appreciate you. Sometimes, the simplest question opens the biggest door. What do you need from me right now? In moments when she feels lost, overwhelmed, or disconnected, your calm presence becomes the anchor that steadies the entire ship. There comes a stage in some relationships where the emotional shift isn't just a phase, it becomes a deeply rooted internal transformation, and by the time a man notices it, she may already be far ahead in her own emotional process. This isn't about blame or morality, it's about understanding a psychological truth. Once a woman reaches a certain point of emotional detachment, reversing it becomes incredibly difficult, sometimes impossible. This happens when she is no longer conflicted or confused. She becomes quiet, steady, and strangely calm. Because she's already made peace with the idea of letting go, her emotional energy is no longer tied to saving the relationship. It's tied to building a new identity beyond it. You'll notice it in subtle ways. She stops asking for change. She doesn't argue anymore. She simply disengages. Her excitement, curiosity, and emotional warmth shift elsewhere. She becomes polite instead of loving, distant instead of angry. It's not that she wants to hurt you. It's that she has emotionally drifted to a place where the relationship no longer feels like home. Sometimes her emotional commitment has silently transferred to her career, her independence, her personal growth, or even someone who makes her feel seen again. When this shift becomes internalized, logic, conversations, and even grand gestures often fall flat because her heart has already moved on. But here's the truth you must hold on to. This isn't your failure. It's a moment many men face without ever being taught how relationships evolve, or how quietly emotional bonds can erode over time. Understanding this doesn't end your story. It gives you clarity, strength, and the power to rebuild yourself, no matter what comes next. When a relationship enters a fragile phase, the instinct is often to fight harder, cling tighter, or push for immediate answers. But the truth is, the first person you must protect is yourself. Not out of selfishness, but out of survival, stability, and strength for whatever lies ahead. This starts with emotional boundaries. You can care deeply without allowing every mood shift, argument, or cold response to break you. Boundaries don't mean shutting her out. They mean staying grounded in your own emotional stability. This keeps you from reacting impulsively or collapsing under the uncertainty. Next is gentle detachment, not distancing out of punishment, but giving both of you space to breathe. It's stepping back just enough to stop the cycle of chasing, pleading, or over-explaining. This often brings more clarity than pressure ever could. You also need to quietly prepare for difficult outcomes, not because you expect the worst, but because you deserve to be ready. This might mean organizing finances, strengthening your support system, or reflecting on what stability looks like for your future. If you have children, remember one thing: they must come first. Kids feel tension even when nothing is said. Your calmness, fairness, and emotional control will shape their sense of safety during uncertain times. And if things become overwhelming, as they often do, there is no shame in seeking counseling or professional guidance. Sometimes you need a neutral space to untangle your thoughts and make healthier decisions. Through all of this, move without hostility, without revenge, without bitterness. You're not protecting yourself by hardening your heart. You're protecting yourself by strengthening it. This is how you stay steady, no matter what happens next. If you've made it this far, there's one truth you need to hold on to. Her change isn't random. It didn't come out of nowhere, and it isn't just about you. It's a storm of identity shifts, emotional exhaustion, biological changes, and years of needs she may never have spoken out loud. Understanding this doesn't excuse the pain you feel, but it does give you a clearer path forward. What matters now is not panic, but clarity. Clarity in how you respond. Clarity in how you protect your own heart. Clarity in how you rebuild connection, or rebuild yourself if that becomes necessary. You're not powerless in this moment. You're not invisible, and you're not too late. What you need is perspective, steadiness, and the willingness to see beyond the surface. If you can manage that, you can navigate this phase with dignity and strength, no matter what the final outcome becomes. But don't do it alone. Your story matters, your voice matters, and your experience can help someone else going through the same silent storm. If this spoke to your situation, if you recognized even a single line as your reality, drop a comment saying, "I'm listening." I'll create a full guide to help you understand exactly what to do next. You're not alone in this.